Can I do anything I want? I mean, I can sit here. I have no idea why I got nominated to do this, but I'm to introduce John Lamb and his Tanzanian water well project, along with Timothy Triplett. That's so good to have you, sir. Excellent. No curse words or anything. Very formal.
Okay. Before we get started, I have something to add about Jordan's prayer.
Yes.
He was talking about small lights and big lights and all this stuff. But remember, and it sounds like a smart aleck remark, but it really is true. You talk about being a small LED. You get enough LEDs together, you've got the Jumbotron.
That's right.
And that's not a joke. Think about it. All the little things you do add up. And all the little things we do adds up. And that kind of segues into what we're doing here. Just remember that. As a teacher for 30 years, you make a little change, you don't even notice it, and then 20 years later a student comes back and says, "You remember when you said this to me?" No. And it encouraged me to go and do whatever it was. So you don't know the influences your little things make. So, all right, let's crank this sucker up. All right, the title of this is Water for Tanzania, but we're going to start off simple. Okay? The necessities of life. What are the necessities of life? And I go by the rule of threes. Now, this is not super scientifically accurate, but it's an indicator. The rule of threes here. In the rule of threes, under stressful conditions, you can survive. Come on. You can do it. Here we go. About 3 minutes without air. It's the rule of threes. So, breathing, fairly important. This thing is just not great. You can go about 3 days without water. In a stressful situation. If you have to, but 3 days without water is when you're stressed out. You can go about 3 weeks without food. I've never tried that myself, as you can see. But the problem is that without the water, you don't have the food.
That's right.
So you can go 3 days without water in your body, but how long can you go in your community, in your area, in your region, in your country, without water? We get water easily. We pour it out of the tap. We're so wasteful. We go and we buy water that somebody goes to the tap and puts in a bottle and then hands it and says, $3, please. Okay, but even when we were having our Texas drought, we had water. We didn't go without water. Even if you're under a boil water notice, you've got water. But that's not the case for a great many people. There are millions of people around the world that instead of getting water this way, this is how they get water. They get water by walking 5, sometimes 10 miles a day, sometimes more than once a day, to get the water for their family. Now, this young lady here happens to be 14 years old, but there are girls as young as 9 and 10 that make this journey. That's 50 pounds of water, folks.
Wow.
Over rocky terrain. You notice that's not a road she's walking on. And this is the sort of thing that people around the world, we're talking about Tanzania today, but it's all around the world. It's not far from us. You can drive a car in a day to areas from here where this is the case. There may be water, but it may be water that nobody can drink safely. Okay, and so that's kind of where we're I can't read with these on. Oh, it's terrible. Getting old is tough. Okay, so I'm going to get the statistics so I get this right. Approximately 26 million women in developing countries, for getting water is a daily trek 5 to 10 or more miles at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. Going out empty but returning home with a 40 or 50 pound container of water on their back or balanced on their heads. And often it's the young girls who cannot go to school because they are busy all day getting water for their family. Now, Again, they're getting water. But what if there is no water to get your 5 or 10 mile walk? This is what's going on in Africa right now, in East Africa mostly. They're having the worst drought that they've had since 1945. And it has been super bad for the last 5 years. It's been going on a lot longer than that, but the last 5 years have been really, really, really bad. Where we have, here's the area of Tanzania. And let me get up here. All in this area here, we're talking all of this, is having a terrible drought problem. Now, it just so happens that this past month, the area of Tanzania we'll be talking about actually had higher than expected rainfall. Much higher. I have a graph here in just a second. It shows you that, but that's one day, or not one day, 1 month out of 5 years where they've had higher than expected rainfall. So there's Tanzania in Africa. There's the area of Tanzania. And this area where my shadow is where we're looking. This is a mostly dry river right now. So it's not the most congenial place. That line is the border with Kenya, and it is part of the westernmost edge of the Masai Mara. Now, if you've ever seen, and forgive me, a Tarzan movie, you've probably seen the Maasai, because they are the most striking native group in that area. And I have spoken to some Maasai when I was in Kenya. They're lovely people, tall, slender, and mostly raising cattle. Cattle is a water-intensive, some of us know that. Yes. You got to have a lot of water to raise cattle. Yes. And the cattle are drinking all the water. They're also, they have the surface water, and they walk out in the water, and people can't drink that water anymore, not safely. So surface water is not a real good option for them. This is what it looks like. Trying to harvest with what little water they can along mostly dry riverbeds and streams. You can see that this is their life, and this is just outside of Arusha, where we're talking about. Look at that water. Is that what you want to be drinking? This is surface water where the cattle have been. All right, this is that graph I was talking about. The drought is historic. Here we go. Is historic in its scope. Average rainfall during the year. This is what we're looking at. These measurements are in millimeters, not inches. Millimeters. So remember, 100 millimeters is that. 100 millimeters is that right there. Okay, excuse me, that. Accuracy in all things. Okay, so it's a tough time for them. Average rainfall, they actually might get a good crop this year, but even so, they're working on a food deficit because of the drought. They have predators coming into the villages because there's no prey for them out in the wilds. Okay, so when you have leopards, one of the stories I read, the leopards came in and attacked a goat in the pen beside the house in the daytime. That's not something that you want. It's just a matter of time. Timothy and I were talking about this yesterday. It's just a matter of time before that's a child. And it may have already happened and we just didn't hear about it. So it is a desperate, desperate situation. Now, there's some more. Just bringing the pictures. There's some Maasai. Now, our committee members here. How did we get involved in all of this stuff? That's kind of what, that's one question that I asked Timothy. Says, how did this all happen? I got involved in it last year when Rick Morrow, who is there in Tanzania and is sort of the impetus behind this, was visiting our club, and I got to meet him and know him. We started talking because I had been in Kenya and he's just across the border, and so we got to talking, and then I got to talking to Timothy and said, well, here, So I'm going to read how this all began. Timothy met Rick Morrow in 1988 when they were working together on a joint project. And as he said, he's one of the last people you'd have imagined living in Tanzania, working with orphans there. They reconnected through LinkedIn and learned about his work in Tanzania, where he's working with widows and orphans in a compound that he's put together to support a group that is, you know, you think, we hear in America, we talk about, oh, you know, women need equality and they're not treated fairly. Try visiting a country like Tanzania, and they are looked upon as property still. But in many cases, the daughter, especially the eldest daughter, is looked on as a single benefit to the family, and that is when she is sold off in marriage. That is her single benefit to the family. So I interjected that from myself. Anyway, Rick fell over for the short-term trip went over for a short-term trip to help, and he fell in love with the people, and he decided to stay and do something that mattered. Okay, in making progress, but right now water is the key to their problems. Now, fast forward to January 13th of last year, when Roger McCabe came here. Many of you will remember that. He came to talk to us about the Rotary Foundation. Okay, this was before I joined, so when I say us, yeah. Okay, and he spoke about the global grants. Tim got inspired. He said, I was very rude. I started emailing Tim emailing Rick. I'm trying to go too fast because I'm looking at my time. Emailed him while he was still talking, you know, saying this is something we could do, and that got the ball rolling. And so we've been working, after they recruited this poor sucker up here to be part of it. Months of back and forth about estimating costs and getting hydrology surveys and actually looking at the science of it. Being technical people, they wanted to get all their facts in a row instead of just saying, well, we think this would be good. You know, they really researched it, you know. Well, you know, a lot of people do that.
Yeah, I do.
You know, well-meaning people say, oh, we can help them by doing this, you know. But instead, you got to see, what do they know they need? And what do they actually need? And how do you actually get that done in a reasonable and, underlined in all caps, sustainable manner? Because if you just sent them a truckload of water, you know, that's gone quick. And then the truck is dismantled and sold. So, you know, that part of the world, I can tell you that's exactly what would happen. Okay, instead, they've got tribal support, because in those areas, tribal support is important. Village elders are important to get their approval for anything that you're going to do, especially as a Wazungu. That's us, by the way. In Swahili, we're Wazungu, you know, the wanderers, because we just wander around like we don't know what we're doing. But so we started working on the global grant. We started working together, and it's been kind of tough to try to get everything all together in just the right way, and we're submitting it today, as a matter of fact, right?
Yes.
Did it get done, or we
Not
did?
yet. We're going to after the meeting.
Going to right after the meeting.
So we have one last chance for changes.
Yeah, one last chance. Okay, now what is our actual purpose of this grant? Now, this is what's important. Our purpose is to provide access to safe drinking water for a community in Tanzania where a drought has devastated the area. 2, to provide sustainability to the community by having reliable water within easy reach rather than spending all day carrying water. And to improve health conditions by replacing chronically tainted surface water with potable well water. Sounds like good stuff, right? And how do you do that? Well, you do that by digging a well. Well, you don't actually dig a well anymore. By doing a borehole, you dig that well down deep enough to have a reliable water source. But you don't just dig a hole. You have to pump that water out of the ground. And so we have, our plan is for a solar-powered water pump with a retaining cistern completely contained so that you can get water all day long. But, well, let me rephrase instead of that. Instead of using diesel, we decided on the solar because diesel supplies continue to cost money. They are also, in that area of the world, very vulnerable to theft. Not just the diesel itself, but also the truck that carried it. And I'm not making a funny here. Trucks carrying fuel get hijacked on the road all the time. This is an area of the world where a pipeline will have taps, illegal taps all along it, both oil and fuel and gasoline. There'll be illegal taps where people are just stealing fuel out of the pipeline. So we went with the solar so that it would be, the continued cost would not be there. There's going to be maintenance, obviously. There is also provision made for a security fence. In fact, I think, is the fence already?
No, it's in the budget though.
It's in the budget, though, yeah. So a security fence to keep it secure. It is also built in, it's to be administered by the village elders. Small fees attached to the water, very small fees in order for maintenance, so that this can be a sustainable project. Solar power is much more prevalent in that part of the world because of its one-time cost. And it doesn't matter whether there's supply lines, it's good right where it is. It's one of the things that I noticed when I was in that area. Okay, so next question mark, that was the first question mark. Second question mark is, what is this going to cost? Well, by putting all the numbers together, it's right around $54,000, $55,000. The exact numbers here, but you don't need to know the exact numbers unless you'd like to read our global grant report, which I have copies available for your perusal. If you email me, we can certainly email you a copy of this. That's the second big question mark. Third big question mark. What am I asking from you? Smile, everybody smile. Okay, this is the part that you say, okay, what do you want? Okay, because, something like this, it's not free. Now, the biggest part of this money is hoping to come from the global grants. That's our thing. But as part of that, there has to be contributions in local areas. And one of the things that we are asking, pleading, begging, from this club is a contribution of $4,400 to the overall cost of this project. And I think it's something that is, when we talk about being a light, or we talk about service above self, or we talk about the four-way test. We talk about the four-way test every week. So here you go. Is it true that these people need help? Yes, it is. Okay? Will it be fair to the members of that community that we give them this kind of help? So rather than just saying, here, have a truckload of water, here's a way for you to get water for yourself. Is that fair? And that's an actual question that needs to be answered. Will it build goodwill and better friendships halfway across the world? Absolutely. Will it be beneficial to all concerned members of that community and this one? That's a question you have to answer for yourself as far as whether it will benefit us. Is it going to benefit us materially? Maybe not. Emotionally?
Yes.
Most definitely. And finally, our fifth thing that we always add, will it be fun? Probably not. Okay, let's be honest, that's not going to be fun. But is it going to be rewarding?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it will be. Now, I want to end this. There's the saying that was up there. I want to end this. I have a cousin who did part of his doctoral work on global drought, okay, and specifically African drought, but also in the Gobi Desert, in Mexico, in South America, and different things like that. And everybody's heard that old saying about, a butterfly flaps its wings in the rainforest and you get a tornado in Central Park. Okay, and most people think, yeah, right, whatever. Well, he took that idea and applied it to global disasters, in specific, in droughts. And a drought in a country, even a, quote, third world country, developing nation like Tanzania or Kenya or Somalia, these sorts of things have global impacts. And I was going through some of his other work last night after we finished, and found a couple of really good examples. One of them, which is something you don't normally think of, is timber. Remember when we had all these fires in Texas, and we lost all this timber in Texas and in California? It was devastating. And we think, you know, fires is horrible, we lost lives and we lost houses, but we also lost thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of timber, which drove the price of lumber up. Now, because the price of lumber went up continentally, this whole part of the world, there were farmers in South America who said, it's time for us to cash in on this, and they clear-cut big areas of the forest and sold that timber. Okay? Well, that land is not sustainable to be done clear-cut. So now that land has eroded and it doesn't grow anything except weeds and, you know, pumas or whatever. Okay? So that had a global impact. Another thing to think about is whenever you have something like drought or famine or disease, it creates social unrest, social instability. And in that part of the world, social unrest leads to political unrest. And I turn your mind now to Somalia, which is just right up the coastline there. What happened to that country when they had nothing? The drought was starving them. They had nothing left. They turned to organizations like what is now ISIS. They turned to the pirates who victimized the Indian Ocean. All from drought. And the impact on shipping in that area from that drought still continues. Small things can lead to big things. This is a small drop in the bucket, helping widows, orphans, people who are in need, but you don't know where that's going to lead. Okay, these are some links that I can make available to you if you want to see what he is actually doing and the people that he is actually dealing with. Okay, I didn't figure I would spend a lot of time on that. Okay, now I'd like to open this to questions that I can't answer. Yes?
What you're doing is a great idea, but I was curious, what is the United Nations and the World Health Organization and the Bill Gates and all those people, what do they do to control water?
Well, the United Nations has a group, I can't remember the name of it. What's the name of it?
Oh,
The United Nations has a world organization that works on that, but they can't be everywhere at once. And the United Nations does not have as much reach as they may have once had. And the government in Tanzania has its own issues because, as I was saying, political upheaval, social unrest, and political upheaval go hand in hand. And it's hard for them to get projects like this done, especially targeting, as in this case, the weakest members of their society, which is widows and orphans, which they would just as soon ignore anyway. That's the tough answer. Yes?
And I may have missed this. What number of people are affected, will be directly affected by this water well?
Do you have that number?
It's in the global grant.
It's in the grant. Sorry, that's a great question. I should have been prepared for it. Every month between 1,000 and 2,500 people would be directly affected by this project, depending on movement. Yeah.
Is there a stipulation in the grant to train the village elders in how to maintain this equipment?
Yes, that is actually built in as part of the grant, maintaining the equipment and maintaining the support systems that go with it.
You mentioned that there's an upfront cost, and I think you said there are some fees for ongoing expenses. Who pays those fees?
Okay, the ongoing maintenance is paid by the fees they charge for water. Okay, and that will be set by the village elders. Usage fees. So they will also be trained in how to maintain, and it's part of the grant is the training. So these are great questions. Wow, yes.
So how deep do you have to go to get water in that part of Tanzania?
I would have to look at the survey. It's, they did a water survey about that. Is it, I don't think that's in here.
I don't know that it's in this part, but I think it's relatively deep. It's like 600 meters or something like that. It's a fairly deep well. That's why the expense is larger than it is. It's because of the depth of the well and the geological formations down below.
I don't mean to be negative, but the village elders, are they going to be fair to the people in what they charge for the water?
You would hope so, but you're talking about fairness. If you didn't hear her question, will the village elders be fair? Well, they're going to be more fair than
Someone else.
than someone
The
from outside,
nation.
because it is in their interest to have their community healthy and working and doing so. And plus, as I mentioned at the beginning about the one-time benefit of a young girl, if she's not having to go 10 miles to get water, then she can go to school, and she is of greater benefit to the community, and the women can be more productive. And it's a great, the whole community will benefit. Now, this is going to be on the property, isn't that correct? That is controlled by Rick Morrow and his mission.
Okay.
So there will be some incentive for that to be a fair distribution.
Yeah. If I could add just a little bit to that. Rick, since he visited here, went back to Tanzania, he has become a Rotarian, so he's now a fellow Rotarian in Tanzania. He's connected with the Arusha, the Rotary Club of Arusha, the business leaders and leaders of that, which is the nearest city, which is still a long drive from where this guy is, but it's the closest. So he has the backing of the Rotary Club leaders in Arusha to help ride herd on the fairness and that this is done up front and correctly. Rick already sunk his money into a well, so he's been down, learning what not to do is a really good thing. If you show up from the United States and say, hi, we're here to help you, let's drill a well, you might be in for some real big surprises. He already drilled a dry well by getting a hydraulic survey from one place and drilling from another place, and when they don't find the water, they go, those guys made a mistake over there, it's not our fault, they need to still pay us, even though it is a dry hole. So this time around, the big process is, you find this water, drill it, we pay when the water comes out.
Good.
Not just to drill a hole in the ground, whether water comes out or not. So they've learned that process. Rick has been in Tanzania now for, I think it's 4 years that he's been serving there full time, living in the same conditions the Messiah are living in.
Without electricity?
He's shuttling these kids to what they call plaster house, where they get their feet and such corrected from deformities. He is forever just, it is a challenge to survive, but he's also working on changing their mentality of, when he arrived, it was, help us, we expect you to help us, and we don't expect to have to do anything except be good receivers. He's been working on it for the last 4 years to change that mentality to, hey, it's your responsibility, it's your family, you need to be doing some things to support your own community, you need to be active, we will help you, enable you to get to a point to where you don't need any help from anybody else. So I look at this as we have someone from our culture, Rick Morrow, over there, that's proven his dedication by 4 years of service there already. He's connected with Rotary in Arusha. We have all of our radar out for graft and corruption, because global grants, historically, our district has not been able to get a successful global grant, because in the process, before the money actually happens and the project happens, graft and corruption rears its head, and Rotary is not going to have anything to do with that, and bam, it's all shut down. It's like, okay, we're not doing that. So this time around, if everything works right, Roger McCabe inspired me by his presentation here 18 months ago, that this is something that Rotary wants to do. We want to do a global grant. We've had a heck of a time finding a worthy project that is sustainable, doable, and it has all the earmarks of success. I think we found one. God delivered it to us. I was just happened to be sitting in the audience and had a connection to Rick when Roger made his presentation. And that's what it's all about. It takes a community of people to make something like this happen and be successful. And that's one of the things I'm really impressed with Rotary. It is a global community of people.
I know you mentioned there was a well that wasn't successful, you kind of learned from that. Is there another well that's been solar powered that has similar technology, similar atmosphere where it is successful?
I've seen some that do that, and it's very successful. If we have any other questions,
In West
grab us afterwards, because our time is going to run out here. It already has, actually.
Yeah, no batteries on the solar. When the sun shines, you pump water. When the sun doesn't shine, nothing happens. So the technology is simplified. It's greatly simplified with what we think of as solar systems.
Thank you, John. Very informative. Sounds like a very worthy cause. We're so blessed with an abundance of water here, it's easy to take it for granted. Certainly it is in East Texas. We're short on time, guys, so I'm going to remind everyone